Alrighty, so it's 6:35, so we will go ahead and get started. All right, bear with me one second. Alrighty, so thanks everyone for joining. I know it might sound a little silly for me to introduce myself because since I personally invited all of you, but my name is Destin Thomas. But outside of work and school, everyone usually just calls me D. I wanted to welcome you guys to the inaugural mini mastermind group, which focuses on real estate and real estate related matters, among other business topics as well. So essentially, this group is intended to live in the space between a meetup group and a mastermind group, where it's a bit more involved than a normal meetup would be, but a bit less on the intensive side than a mastermind group would be. Since this is the first session of this group, it will most likely change and adapt as time goes on. So comments and suggestions as far as time changes and things of that nature are feel free to bring those up. So we're going to go ahead and hop right on in. All right. So welcome to the 2022 real estate market, where the offer prices are made up and comps just don't matter. That's pretty much what it seems like to be the theme of the past couple years. But before we jump in, I wanted to give you guys an idea of what we'll essentially be talking about today. So we got missions and goals just in terms of what this group is all about. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. We'll do some introductions if you guys are up to introducing yourselves. And then we'll go over a real life story. We're going to go over essentially the first investment property that I was able to obtain, just for the real life empirical aspect of things. And then we'll go over topics to expect in future sessions if you guys are curious and want to continue this thing. And then we'll end it with questions, comments, or suggestions. But also feel free to ask any questions during the session as well, because I don't want these sessions to feel like a presentation, kind of like how this first one will seem. But I want it to be more of an open forum networking kind of situation with an interactive format, where the slides and topics that we discuss are more just fuel for our conversations primarily. So before I jump into it, any questions off the bat? We're good? All right, cool. All right, so me personally, I'm a huge fan of quotes, and I'd like to start this and future sessions with a relevant quote to kind of start the tone of things for the day. So a rising tide lifts all boats. And essentially this goes with why I started this project, because one of my main motivations has been to see my friends, family, and loved ones essentially also become prosperous. And I see success as seeing all those people that I care about, succeeding in life as well, and giving those people any motivation that I can to do so. Like I've said, what's the point of having millions of dollars in wealth and riches if essentially all the people you care about are struggling? And that was like a main focus for starting this thing. So this is where that famous, teaching one to fish instead of feeding them every day analogy comes into play with this type of group setting. So I feel like this quote is perfect, for the overarching theme of the purpose and goals of this group. And so, we'll take a quick look at what the mission and goals are in particular. But first, a while back, I came across this interesting concept that went slightly viral back in the day. It was instead of baby showers, let's host business showers. When a friend starts a business, we all come together, congratulate them, and bring resources to their business. Now, as great as baby showers are, I'm a little biased because I don't have any baby's kids running around causing havoc. But imagine how many people would be more inspired to go after a dream, just knowing that they have a group of people there to support and encourage them. A lot of people, unfortunately, have to start alone, and regardless of whether it's a new business, going back to school, starting a new hobby, whatever it is, at the end of the day, we all eventually need some kind of help and support. So with this group, the mission, slash goals are: number one, to create connections with other like-minded individuals who are focused on building better lives. Number two, transparency, to essentially eliminate the fear and anxiety of the unknown, i.e. those non-starters, where basically why a lot of people never end up trying in the first place. So I feel like bringing transparency to the unknown can help eliminate that fear, essentially. Providing an environment that allows for those people at any experience level to feel comfortable with asking questions about anything, especially real estate. And again, another reason why people don't try is because they're afraid of looking unintelligent, embarrassing themselves, or, even having imposter syndrome. But you have to start somewhere, right? And so I remember just first getting into real estate, I remember calling attorneys, because I knew I was going to need an attorney and, need legal advice. And I thought that they wouldn't give me the time of day. I thought that they were just going to, laugh me out of the phone call. And I ended up getting hours of free legal advice just by asking questions and being cool and just, just being like just upfront and just honest with them. Like, hey, I'm starting out, can I ask you a couple questions and see if we can maybe be a good fit. And I learned so much just off of that, but you have to start somewhere. You have to just ask, right? So yeah, it's as easy as that sometimes. And then last is to essentially help families and friends build that multi-generational wealth by sharing knowledge and the resources so that pretty much all of our ships will be able to rise in prosperity. So we wanted to just jump into introductions. So now, now that we all know why, essentially why we're here, I want us to start by briefly introducing ourselves. And this is only if you feel comfortable doing so. You don't have to. If you want to just, be a spectator, sit and chill, that's fine. But before we do that, even feel free to put your contact information in the chat as well too, so that you can start connecting with others and we can actually start building relationships now instead of later. So I'll actually start off by doing that myself. I'm going to just throw that in the chat really quick. I know most of you already have my contact info, but just want to kind of get the ball rolling on that. So feel free to throw that in if you'd like throughout the session here. All right. So basically, with this particular situation, you'll want to say your name, where you're from, and in what category you fall into, essentially. So I'll go ahead and start with myself. So once again, my name is Destin, aka D. I'm currently in Los Angeles, California, and I'm a rookie investor. It's only been about 10 months since I got my first property. And so, like I said, I kind of figured about the 0 to 2 year mark is, still considered a rookie. Others move faster than others, but yeah. And then also, I'm not, for disclosure purposes, because I work in finance, didn't want to mislead anybody or anything, but I'm not a real estate agent, not an attorney, not a tax professional. I'm not a financial advisor. So that's just to say we're all here to learn and share with each other. And it's just a good group of people that, want to help each other out. So that's all that this is. So yeah, so like I said, we can go around and whoever wants to introduce themselves can, no pressure, only if you want to. We'll try and keep it to 30 seconds or less since we have a bit to go over. All right. And so I'm gonna go ahead and pick on somebody. So I hope we're not too shy out there. Lamar, you're my homie and everything. So why don't you, if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with a quick introduction for yourself?
No problem. So Lamar here. Also have my wife Elena here on the Zoom call. Also, we're in Los Angeles, California, and we are probably like spectator rookie. I mean, we definitely want to get into real estate. We just haven't found the right situation for us. And so, connecting with D now that we saw him make his first transaction and move forward. So, it's even more interesting. So, spectator rookie, somewhere around there.
Nice. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody feeling confident out there?
I can go.
Thank you.
My name is Darjay, also known as DJ. I reside in Inglewood, California. Definitely a spectator in this particular situation. Definitely willing to learn. Always have been curious about the market. My mom, she was into commercial real estate years ago, so I have a little. It's a little familiar to me in certain areas, but when it comes to investing in real estate, I am definitely willing to learn. And I do have baby kids, so this is good. So that I can, start to build that nest egg for them. So
awesome. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My name is Dalinda, and I live in Los Angeles, California, and I'm here as a spectator and to learn.
All right.
About investing.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Or we're good?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Robert Ortiz. I'm from San Diego, and I am a rookie investor. So I've been investing not even a year yet. So I'd say about 9 months. And I have properties out in Kansas City, Missouri. And so I'm ready, willing to learn. I still got a lot to learn. I'm not even a year yet. So nice to meet you all.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Thank you. Yeah, and me and Robert, we've been talking, for the past couple months, and he's been really crushing it out there. So I'm like, he's been motivating the heck out of me with this recently. So yeah, mad props to you for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right, great. So now that most of us have had a chance to introduce ourselves, now what I want to do is just kind of put myself on the spot real quick here. Now, I strive to be an open book as much as I can. I'm a proponent of essentially normalizing conversations about our financial lives. And what I mean by that is, it's no secret that there's always been a cloud of privacy around finances and sort of a stigma around talking openly about it. I mean, unless you're a celebrity or a highly successful person for the most part. So when it comes to income, business bonuses, net worth, family wealth, all that stuff, many believe that secrecy is kind of a contributing factor to why there has been so much financial illiteracy for so long. Like almost like everyone is kind of programmed to keep their financial information from others. Perhaps it's the competitive nature that or individualism that the U.S. Kind of culture has. Who knows? Like for instance, when you're applying for a new job, one might say that a lot of us come to an arbitrary salary based on what we make now and what pay increase would make us happy, as opposed to what that position really should be paying you. So, things like that, non-transparency kind of throw a wrench into the situation. So with all that said, I got into real estate investing just last year, but I'm actually, going to give you guys the actual numbers that it took me to get this particular deal that you see here, this duplex. It's by no means the only way. It's simply how it just happened to work out for me. And like I said, it's in the spirit of our goal of transparency for anyone who may be a little, apprehensive in terms of getting into owning property, whether as an investor or just, owning a family home. But I want to shine some light on, what it's like. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the details and just hop right into it. All right, so here you see, it's the actual aerial photo of the duplex that I have out in the city of
Sorry,
Carson.
Destiny.
Oh, it's okay. He just wants to see the duplex. It's all good. So here are the details. So it was listed at $799. I ended up getting it for 800. Each unit is 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Each unit's 840 square feet with a 1 car indoor garage. This is the lot size. It was built in 1960. They're separately metered in terms of the utilities for electric and gas, but water is combined. No adjacent walls, and it's actually got a cool little private backyard or front yard, I should say, for the back unit. So as you can see here, we were about a year and a half into the pandemic around July of 2021, when essentially I was able to get the unit at $1,000 above asking price, and there were actually 3 other competitors' offers. There was one offer at 810,000, so 10,000 above asking price. 820,000 at 20,000 above asking price, and there was an offer even at $235,000 down payment. And there was no way I was putting that kind of down payment. And so it was just one of those things where, I was able to think outside the box and basically appeal to the seller and essentially try and make it a win-win situation. So now we're just going to go through the basic process of what acquiring a rental property can look like, and keep in mind it's different for everyone, but this is a real life empirical example, pretty much like at a high level macro view. And if we do have time at the end, I'll go ahead and tell you guys the crazy story of how I actually was able to get it at only $1,000 above asking price, which was totally insane and unheard of in this seller's market. Um, so we have here, it literally started off, I met with my real estate agent, and I met a good one who was smart and definitely driven. Driven was probably the most important aspect of it because there's a lot of work that goes behind it. They put me into contact with a good lender because I had a pretty crappy lender the first time around, and they found a better one for me. So that was awesome. And I basically provided my financials to get pre-approved, not pre-qualified. There's a huge difference. Basically, pre-approved literally is a more official. Most places won't even take a pre-qualification. And then essentially at that point, after you're pre-approved, you start looking for the properties. And so now going in as an investor, what you don't see is all that goes on before all of this, essentially. So I did a ton of research, studying and just learning as much as I could about real estate before jumping in. And I'm just skipping it here, obviously, because I want to go right into the good stuff, but just wanted to mention that because it is important, that there's a lot that kind of goes into it ahead of time. So then the next step is once you start looking at properties, you just, you run a quick analysis on those prospective properties that you are looking at. And what I mean by quick analysis is that you do kind of like rules of thumb to make sure that, before you jump into filling out a full-on spreadsheet, you can see if it's even worth your time. And then you actually go to those open listings that do meet your search criteria and that actually do work with your numbers that you're running. And you go in, you look at the overall structure of the property and evaluate, whether you actually even want to put in an offer. And like I said, you kind of have the goggles of an investor at that point. You're looking at it from an investor point of view and what value add you can basically provide. And then essentially you start putting in multiple offers, and especially, like I said, in the seller's market that we've been in, you just kind of keep throwing them against the wall until one eventually sticks. And so in my case, I got lucky and I got one. One was accepted. So then I notified my lender and scheduled to have the inspections done. It includes the general inspection, plumbing, termite or wood destroying organisms, as they like to call it. And you get an appraisal done, just to make sure everything is good to go. And then you basically begin your negotiations on the deal based on any findings that you might find from the inspections, because you might need to have some things replaced, or if they're not willing to replace it, maybe you'll get a credit at closing, and they'll actually pay you what they would have put in to replace that item, or even a reduction in the actual purchase price. So essentially, once all that's done and you actually come to an agreement at the very end, after all the negotiations are done, you have to provide your financials all over again to your lender. Make sure you didn't become broke in the past couple of weeks while you were looking for a place. They want to make sure you're still good. And then after that, you sign on the dotted line, you close escrow, and then the property is yours. So at that point, I began renovations, repairs, and cleaning the units, to essentially get them rent ready, because I knew I was going to, want to start bringing tenants in and all that good stuff to show them the units. And and then basically once the units are rent ready, I started holding open houses and bringing people in and scheduling appointments to have them check it out, and more so I could screen those potential tenants while I'm accepting their applications, because you want to kind of put them through a somewhat rigorous inspection process. They're going to be living in your property, so you want to make sure that they're going to treat it right. And so once they pass your I came up with a 3-level screening process that I like to do that was actually pretty good. And so once they pass that, you have them sign off on all the lease docs and the disclosures and everything. They provide their deposit, the security deposit, and then the first month's rent, and they're pretty much able to move in. So and at this point, basically this process is specific to self-managing a property. So a lot of people like to hire it out to a property manager. I particularly wanted to manage it myself to kind of like, learn the ropes and learn the ins and out of the business. So in addition to, property acquisitions, I want to do property management at the same time. So the process is just a little different. So here at this point, you might think, okay, cool, I got the tenants in. Now I can chill. I can kick my feet up and just watch the checks roll in and start, buying Mercedes and watches and stuff. No, you can't do that. Sorry. You may actually have a couple more things that you want to do first and take care of. And so, pretty much how the process would really end is that you then, once they move in, you have to respond to tenant repair and maintenance requests that I might have missed when I was going, getting the units rent ready, because most of the repairs and maintenance come within the first year anyways. So a lot of the times they're going to call you or submit a maintenance request a couple times within those first couple months. So that's pretty normal. And then, but at this point, even before I moved them in and everything, I already had my landlord software set up and ready to go. So I was able to officially manage them from the get-go, all online, which is good, because that's good for the lease documentation and all these disclosures that you have to give them, and to accept the rental payments as well too. And they, that's where they also submit maintenance requests and things of that nature. So it just makes it a lot more smooth. And then you also have to keep your bookkeeping, good to go as well too. So even if you hire out, and decide that, I'm going to have somebody else do my bookkeeping for me, you still need to keep track of that kind of thing. So you want to keep track of all your expenses, your cash flow, and all that good stuff in a separate business account, because you want to keep everything separate. And that's essentially for 2 reasons. Number one, for simplicity, for when you're going to do your taxes and everything, you just want to keep your personal stuff separate from your business stuff. And for also liability reasons. I'm gonna have a whole nother session on, asset protection and liability and all that stuff later on. Once again, that's the nerd side coming out in me. I've bought books on LLCs and, land trusts and things of how to protect your assets. So we'll be able to go into all that kind of fun stuff as well too. But yeah, it's very important, so you want to keep all that stuff separate. And then, yeah, and then me in particular, and what a lot of the professional real estate investors do is they'll schedule and plan to have a handyman come out at least every 6 months to do general inspections of the property, because essentially, you might have a tenant that doesn't call you or submit any requests for years, and that might sound like it's a good thing, like, hey, they're not bugging me, but things do break down. And so it kind of raises the question, okay, well, are things breaking down and they're not telling me, or is there a small issue that's going on that could potentially become a bigger issue because they're not telling you about it? So you got to kind of think about that kind of stuff. So if you do a general inspection every 6 months, you can catch those things and just have the handyman fix it right then and there, and then send you the bill for it. So yeah, like I said, with transparency being one of the main goals, the last thing I ever want to do is sugarcoat a reality that people need to know about. So I feel it's critical to give real life numbers to shed light on pretty much everything that happened, especially with this first deal. So before I get into the numbers and everything, I know I just kind of went through a lot. Did any of that generate any questions for anybody? Any quick questions?
Destin, what are your 3-level screenings?
Okay, yes, good question. So first level of screening, it's a very short 5-question questionnaire that is also part of the whole online process that coordinates with the landlord software that I have. So it's 5 basic questions, and it just says, like, what's your credit score, how many people are going to live there, do you have any pets, and there's 2 other questions as well. But it's very basic stuff, and believe me, that really helps filter out the people that are just going to waste your time, because they're very basic questions. So if they're not willing to take 30 seconds to fill out that 5-second questionnaire, then they're I'm not going to curse on this, but they're damn sure not going to, fill out a full application and be, as robust on that as they would on this, very simple questionnaire. So the people that I knew were at least somewhat serious would at least do the questionnaire at the forefront. And that's because also that would let me know, yeah, that they're serious and everything. So it would, essentially bring them to level 2, where I'd say, okay, at least I know you meet the minimum standards to where you're not going to waste my time, and that we can actually have a discussion. So after that, I would, so level 2 would be to actually schedule a showing to have them come out to see the property itself. So when they actually get to the property, I'll ask them a couple more questions, and then, just kind of get like that. It's the second level is more of a vibe kind of thing. And I really wish I would have, trusted my gut on the first tenant that I had, who actually, they had a stellar, background, their credit history and everything was great, but I didn't get a good vibe from them. But I was like, hey, their credit's fine, their background check was fine, so let me, I'll rent it out to them. And they ended up unfortunately being a nightmare. And so thankfully they're gone now, and I replaced them with a much better tenant. So so that's level 2. And then level 3 is just the full on, application with full on background check. So, once they pass those 3 levels and they go through that full gamut, then they're pretty much good to go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Destin, I had one question. This is Robert.
Hey.
Did you have any guide that you followed or resource for making sure that you complied with like housing issue, or to make sure you didn't run into any discrimination or housing issues with selecting tenants, like a resource,
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did 2 things. Number 1, I bought a book on property management by Brandon Turner, by the way, Bigger Pockets. And so, yeah. And so that thing was phenomenal in and of itself, because even though a lot of these laws are state specific, a lot of them are also generalized. So, and not, I wouldn't say necessarily common sense, but a lot of the same types of general rules are applicable. They're kind of uniform across all states. But then you did want, I mean, they do basically tell you that, yeah, you'll need to go on the state's website and go through the civil code and make sure, for California, they have to do this. And for California, it's this amount of days to do that. So I literally went through the California civil code. Anytime they brought it up in the book, I'll go on the California Civil Code website and I would print out that civil code. I would go through it with a highlighter, like, okay, cool, that's good. And then I would coordinate and make sure that it matched with what was in the lease agreement so that everything was matched. And the lease agreement that I had was California specific as well too. So, I knew that that was going to be okay, but then I added additional addendums and things like that as well too. But I did my research ahead of time for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Good questions. All right. So cool. Thanks you guys. And so okay. And so before we get into going over the numbers really quick, so if you ever want to own a property as an investor, you essentially must memorize this formula, and you can't forget this formula or else you're pretty much just going to do horrible in real estate. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to have to memorize this. I know it looks crazy, but no, I'm just messing with y'all. Just want to make sure you guys are paying attention. You don't have to memorize anything like that. You're good. For those of you that know me, you know I like comedy every now and then. So thanks for bearing with me. I appreciate it. Cool. All right. So when you're running the numbers, this is what it's actually going to look like. So when you're running the numbers, you're going to look at costs associated with acquiring a property. There's a lot to consider above and beyond, just the down payment, which a lot of people really seem to harp on. So it's important, but there's more issues to be cognizant of and other costs that you kind of want to plan for ahead of time as an investor. So remember, this is from the standpoint, not from a homeowner, but from an investor. So as the biggest difference being when you do, what we're doing here, you're essentially starting a business. You're not buying as a traditional homeowner. Okay. So let me see 1 second. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks, Robert. Much appreciated. All right. So all right, man. Have a good night. All right. So yes, so we're going to go ahead and go into it. So here are the numbers. So go ahead and take a quick glance. But what I first want us to look at essentially is, all right. So these are the costs that that are needed to acquire a property. So first of all, you're going to look at the earnest money deposit. So it was $24,000. So once you agree on a purchase price with the seller, you provide a good faith deposit that you could potentially lose if you back out at the wrong time or without a good cause. And there's plenty of opportunities to back out of the deal if you need to. But if you don't back out, this portion becomes pretty much part of your down payment essentially. And then as far as there's closing costs and prepaids to also take into account as well too. So as far as closing costs and prepaids come, I just wanted to mention, thanks to my super cheap and easily affordable student loan debt, he says sarcastically, my debt to income ratio wasn't that great. So even though my credit score was and still is above 800, the bank didn't care. They basically said I had to pay more to essentially buy down the interest rate vis-a-vis, lower my mortgage amount. Hence, this is why the points number you see here, the 16,433 that I was so happy to pay for, is so high in addition to everything else. So essentially, the full cost to acquire the property was $69,277. All right, so it's basically the earnest money deposit amount plus the closing costs and prepaid, which were essentially the down payment amount, the points that you have to pay, which is essentially just like think of it as like a fee, taxes, and then just other miscellaneous fees like title fees, escrow fees, and things like that. And so going into the next aspect here. So now we'll take a quick look at costs that it actually took me to stabilize the property. So once again, from an investor standpoint, you're going to look at utility holding costs. So those are essentially, electric, gas, water, sewer, trash, basically those ongoing costs while you're actually renovating and trying to rent out the units. So you have to still pay for that stuff and maintain it. And then you're looking at cash reserves as well too. So the cash reserves, about 3 to 6 months worth, is essentially because you still have to pay the full mortgage until you actually finish the renovations and fill the units. So that's just something that you have to take into account as well too. And then you have miscellaneous costs. Now, with miscellaneous costs, that's more or less, those aren't costs that are needed in the early stages. They're more so costs that can come up and costs that you'll eventually have to pay down the road. So that's just something to take into consideration. There might be attorney's costs, and then when you do your tax return, and I run conservative numbers, so I always have like a little buffer in there as well too. It's just good to do that as an investor anyways. And then you look at rehab costs. So essentially this was the amount that it took me to go through the, the rehab repairs and everything, which included, new appliances, fixtures, furniture, and contract work like electricians, plumbers, HVAC. And I had to do a full garage renovation as well on one of the units. So stuff like that essentially. And then when you take these, these 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers and add it to the 69,267, it came out to 115,421. So that was over a good 6 to 8 month period where essentially I had to pull that amount out. So basically when you're going over that process, for instance, with the rehab costs, a majority of those rehab costs I actually had to pay. They were for my regular W-2 income checks for, every 2 weeks, and for my investment accounts as well too. So it's like I had to, and also I had to finance a lot of the larger appliances as well too. But basically I'm living below my means as much as possible to put as much of my disposable income towards the rehab costs and everything to stabilize the property. And that's just one of the things that you kind of have to do. And so I didn't just have this money sitting around in an account waiting for me to, put it towards these expenses. It's all about keeping, delayed gratification in mind. It's like that mindset that you have to maintain. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Stanford marshmallow experiment, but it's pretty much the same concept here, where it's, delaying that gratification for the bigger goals over the long term. So after it's essentially stabilized, we can go ahead and take a look at what it would look like from a cash flow point of view. And let me know if I'm going too fast or you guys like me to slow down or anything like that as well too. We're doing good on time. So, all right. So when you're looking at the monthly cash flow, let me pull it up through here. So you're basically looking at an income statement for the most part. You're looking at income minus expenses. So you get your tenant rental income minus the mortgage payment, minus your variable expenses. And then you also have your fixed expenses as well. And then your end result is going to be your cash flow essentially. So it's going to be your, A minus B minus C minus D. Pretty straightforward. It's not calculus. It's pretty, pretty basic stuff. You just got to know what to look for pretty much. And then always got to keep in mind, what's your exit strategy, right? So, going into something like this, or even with a family home kind of situation, but more so from an investor standpoint, you kind of want to have that exit strategy before you even jump into it. So let's look at the actual numbers to see what that would look like. So for my tenants in the first unit, I get 2415. The second unit, I get 2515. These are actual numbers. Like all this is the literal stuff that goes on. So every month I get 4930 in terms of monthly revenue from them. So the mortgage payment's pretty steep. It's 4345. So that's your PI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and that lovely private mortgage insurance. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then you have your variable expenses. So you have repairs and maintenance I have it at 2.5%. And then vacancies at about 5%. Capital expenditures at about 2.5%. And those percentages are the percent of the actual monthly rent that you're bringing in. And then property management, I have it 0%, because remember, I'm self-managing these properties. And I'm kind of breaking a little bit of a rule here, because what the professional investors will actually say is that even if you don't have a property management firm managing it, you should still account for those costs. However, there's a reason why I don't. And number one is because, like I said, I'm doing it because I want to learn the ropes. But also number two is that income, if I was paying myself essentially to manage the properties, I would have to pay myself that fun little self-employment tax, which is, something that kind of defeats the purpose in this whole thing. So yeah, so I'm more than happy to, not take payment for it, because, it's the fulfillment of doing what I'm doing in the first place. So, and then I have my fixed expenses. So with the water is the only thing that's not paid. That's not paid by the tenants essentially. But what I do is I do a water reimbursement of $20 per unit. So the water bill is usually about $90 a month. So minus 40. So it's usually about $50 on my end. Landscaping is on average about $50 a month. I do pest control as well every other month. So that's about $87. And then when you look at your cash flow, A minus B minus C minus D, you get negative $95. So you're probably saying to yourself at this point, wait, now isn't negative cash flow kind of a bad thing? And you'd be right, actually. And ideally, by rule of thumb, according to the experts, you want at least $100 cash flow per door. So in my case, I should actually be cash flowing a minimum $200. So this negative 95 should be plus 200 going into my pocket every month. However, like I said, what also is important is your exit strategy, right? So before even getting into investing in this property, I knew long beforehand that I was going to be a long-term buy and hold investor. So especially, in the seller's market, couldn't be too picky, or I'd probably still be out trying to look for a property at this moment. Now, there's many different investment strategies and exit strategies that you can take. In my case, I just knew ahead of time what my exit strategy would be, and uh, essentially in that case, I knew, like I said, I knew what it was going to be over, and as far as being a long-term investor over those years, I knew I was going to basically build up equity over, the next few years to where I'd be able to do a cash out refinance or do a home equity line of credit, or a HELOC for short. I would remove the private mortgage insurance, the PMI I was telling you guys about, which is actually about $626 a month, pretty much going straight down the toilet, which pretty is it's a hard punch against that 43, 45 number right there. And then establish a new mortgage amount so that I can then positively cash flow, and then also use the equity that I built up over that time to go ahead and use to finance and purchase another property. So all that planning is going ahead of time, way before you even put in your first offer. So if I can't afford to stomach putting out, $95 out of my regular paycheck every month for my long-term goals, I probably shouldn't be investing in real estate just yet anyway. So essentially this long-term goal and the benefits of, of future and the benefits of the future far exceed this, minor inconvenience of $95 every, this temporary drawback. So you just got to weigh those pros and cons. So in this case, I'm willing to do that, for the time being, for the long term. So like I said, it's that delayed gratification, and you just got to take those hits and keep moving forward. So all right, before I move on to the next thing, any questions on any of that?
I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So currently right now you have to pay a PMI. The PMI gets erased once you reach 20% of the value of the price, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and you have to have it for a minimum 2 years.
You have to have the property for a minimum of 2 years.
Or they charge, or you don't have to have the property. Well, I guess in that sense you would, because then you would have to have the PMI paid for 2 years. So it's their way of essentially making money off of you. So by giving you the benefit of, so essentially the reason, for the people that don't know, the reason why I have to pay this private mortgage insurance, which is essentially me paying for the privilege of not having to put down either 20% or 25% down payment, because I did lower than 20%. They do what's called charging you this PMI, this private mortgage insurance, because it's like they're essentially taking more risk. So it's an insurance policy for them if I end up defaulting on my loan and they have to foreclose on me. So basically I have to keep paying that. It's going into their pocket every month. It doesn't go into an account. I don't ever see that again. And so once I do hit a 20% equity in the property, I can go back to them and say, hey, I want to refinance. I want to get out of this, private mortgage insurance. They'll see, okay, yeah, you have 21% equity. All right, we're going to remove that. And then it totally gets eliminated. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Got it. So then if PMI is like $600 or so, that would eventually, that would actually like bring you back to a cash flowing property, correct?
Yeah. So I mean, even before you go through the whole refinance process, you would pretty much rerun the numbers, but you would run it as if you were doing the refinance and make sure that it, at that point that it's going to cash flow. Because then you could be in a position where, maybe property taxes have gone up significantly over the past few years, or, maybe things just kept breaking way more often. So you have to, increase your allocation to repairs and maintenance, so your expenses could, in theory, so you have to account for that as well too, because even though appreciation is increasing, also expenses and things increase over time, and the cost of goods, so you have to take that into account. So you rerun all these numbers when you refinance, and then basically if it's still negatively cash flowing, or the numbers just don't work, you just have to keep working at paying down the mortgage so that you build up that equity until you actually can refinance and start cash flowing positively.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, awesome. So the next part I briefly want to talk about is just a great book that I've read many times over that would essentially start off anyone on the right foot when getting into real estate investing. So this book is called The Book on Rental of Property Investing by Brandon Turner. So first off, even before I get into it, I have no affiliation. I do not get paid or compensated in any way by bringing up this book. It's just an awesome book that I've read and I just love it. And it's by a great real estate investor. I mean, you mentioned the name Brandon Turner to any real estate investor and they will guarantee let you know like, yeah, he's the man. So and so for those of you that so and basically the book, it goes over it's beginner level. It takes a high level macro view of pretty much the real estate market without going too deep into confusing concepts or complicated formulas. It covers the entire gamut of rental property investing at the base level. So it helps really alleviate that like fear of the unknown and helps answer a lot of those questions that people have right out the gate. And because it's user friendly, that really, really helps ease people into it. Or if you're just more of the, I just want to jump in now risk taker type, at the bare minimum, read at least this one book or some beginner book because you will avoid a lot of unnecessary mistakes. And, and a lot of people that do end up, trying to get into real estate investing or any type of real estate investing that don't succeed, it's because they're basically kind of like careless in what they're doing. It's there's a lot of just, if you just even follow the basics, you'll be significantly better off than people that just jump in and are like, oh, I'm gonna just figure it out along the way. That's how you lose a lot of money. So unless you have that money to just throw away, then I wouldn't suggest it. So you'll thank me later. And I was gonna say, for those people that work in finance, you can kind of think of it as taking the Series 7, where it pretty much just covers everything, but it's not even remotely as close as like being as long or complicated. So it's very user friendly. But yeah, so aside from that, maybe you're even thinking about, you maybe even want to be a house flipper or a wholesaler, or even become a real estate agent, or even one day just owning a brick and mortar, business for yourself one day. You'll eventually in some capacity need to be somewhat familiar with real estate to some extent. So this book would pretty much be guaranteed to give you some good foundation to at least, go into a conversation intelligently with somebody if you're going to be purchasing a property or leasing one out. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there that you would use that value at some point one day regardless. So so with that said, I just wanted to say that or I more so wanted to bring to your attention here that the first person to email me at destinthomasproperties@gmail.com with today's quote, "A rising tide lifts all boats," will actually receive a free copy of this book. Oh my God, D is so amazing. He's giving us a free book. That's so awesome. So yeah, so I'll just leave that up there for a quick second. Again, the contact info is also in the chat once again. So like I said, whoever emails me that first will get a free copy of it. I'll contact you directly. But any quick questions before we get into just what we're going to go over into the future sessions and things like that? Or we're good? Good? All right, cool. All right. All right, so potential topics that we are going to cover in future sessions. All right, so how much money do I need to start investing in real estate, and strategies that you can actually take to make it happen? When it definitely, there's a lot of people think like, oh, okay, I could just do, this one conventional way and just do a normal down payment and and that's the only way. And a lot of people that I talk to are very discouraged, thinking that there's only one or two ways. But literally, I kept a spreadsheet out of all the books I was reading and podcasts and everything that I've gone through. There's probably about 23, 24 ways that you can actually acquire a property that people have no idea about. So in different strategies that you can implement as like a normal everyday person. You don't have to be rich or whatever. So it's just, yeah, so that'll be a crucial thing to kind of go over for people. What you need to know and what they don't tell you about real estate taxes. So I had a couple, this was the first year that I had to do taxes that involved the rental property. So that was kind of interesting going through that process. So a lot of things that I would like to share with a lot of people and make people aware of, so we'll go over that. Real estate facts and myths that will surprise you. I swear it's crazy. I've been hardcore studying this stuff for over a year now, for about a year and a half now. And pretty much every time I hear a new story or listen to a new podcast or read a new article, there's something out there where it's like, how have I not heard about this before? This is so important, and things that would just kind of blow you away, that kind of flip things on their head in terms of, wow, I thought it was this one way for the longest, and a lot of people get these things wrong. So I'd rather bring those things to light as soon as possible. What you need to know to protect your investments, aka asset protection. Like I said, I've gone to seminars on, land trusts. I know not a lot of people have heard of land trusts, and those are very significant, especially in real estate. They're for anonymity purposes, and then going over LLCs and S corps and things like that as well too, and how that stuff can not even just protect you in real estate, but it can protect you in your regular everyday business as well too. So there's a lot of fun stuff with that a lot of people don't know about. How to analyze and underwrite investment properties with real life examples. So today's session, obviously it would take a lot more time to go over an actual an analysis of a property and what the underwriting process does look like. So we'll take some time at those points to actually go over what it looks like. And because me, myself, and a couple other people that I've been networking with, Robert, who was just on the call with us, he owns a few properties in Kansas City, Missouri. He was able to, since last August, he was able to acquire 6 properties just in that short amount of time. And so we've been, going through a lot of that and going over a lot of what the analysis looks like and things of that nature. So it's just good stuff to see those real life examples, like real numbers, so people know what to expect. I have a couple guest speakers lined up, some industry experts as well too, some people that I'm pretty excited to have come on and, answer those hard-hitting questions. Because like I said, I'm still a rookie, so I'm still learning every day, and I do hope to be a real estate professional one day soon, but I know I have to, put in the time, put in the years. So so in the meantime, I'll bring on guest speakers and we'll all learn together. So and then I want to hear, as far as your success stories as well too. It's like I said, it's supposed to be interactive, and it's and not even just in real estate. If there's like business successes, and if you started a new business or started a new aspect of business and you're scaling up and all of a sudden you're blowing up and you guys are like, hey, this is something that's going on, I just want to share it with everybody, feel free, we'd love to hear it. And then and then more giveaways and prizes. So I still want to be able to do some cool things. And like I said, I'm doing all of this essentially for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm keeping myself and trying to keep my real estate game tight, and just be able to like I said, I want to be a professional one day, so I want to be able to just like I said, just keep the knowledge base, clean and tight. But then also the bigger goal is essentially to, attract people to want to, bring our minds together and be able to help people out. And I just, like I said, I kind of got sick and tired of seeing so many people, coming into knowledge of industries, businesses, and just things where had they known about it 10, even 20 years ago, they would have done it a long time ago. Kind of like how I feel with real estate. I'm 35. I wish I found out about it when I was 21, and I could have been doing this a long time ago. So going forward, it'll probably be a bit less of a presentation and more of an interactive session, as we'll still have info and topics to fuel our conversations. But you can bring your questions and stories to share as well, and then we'll see where this thing goes from there. And you can pretty much we'll adapt to the format, and then see what what you guys also want to see in these sessions as well too. So that'll pretty much be open for comments and suggestions. So if that sounds all right with you guys. We're about to wrap up here. And so a couple quick things before we close up that I just wanted to mention. I just wanted to thank you all for joining once again. It really means a lot to me. And so please keep in touch. If you know anybody else that may be interested and want to, attend these kind of things, and, you can either bring them or send me their info, and I'll send them an invite directly and, introduce myself, whichever's fine. But no, I totally understand. I know all of you, obviously. So I understand this kind of group thing just isn't for everybody. So I just appreciate you guys coming, for this one tonight. And that, that's perfectly fine. That's okay. Like I said, it's not for everybody. But you have my contact info. So I'll be here if, you change your mind in the future and you think this is maybe something that you want to, reattend, no hard feelings. Obviously, we'll definitely be here for you. But if it does sound like something that you want to keep doing and keep attending and, learning and growing with the rest of us, I'll be sending out requests to join essentially a group through, it'll be like a meetup group link. And for those that don't, like I said, if you change your mind in the future, just let me know, and then you're more than welcome to come back. So feel free to let me know if there's anything in particular that I can do to make these sessions more fun, informative, and enjoyable for you. And I really hope to see you all at the next one if you're kind of feeling this thing. And everybody take care. And unless anybody has any questions off the bat, then we can wrap this up.
I don't have a question, Dee, but I did want to just thank you for doing this. This was extremely informative, and I totally appreciate the transparency, because it was scary at first, not knowing what to expect when it comes to investing. I've always been afraid to invest just because of the risk alone. So I'm excited about even being a part of this evening, and you being open enough to share your journey so far. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And yeah, and I'm so glad you said that, because I mean, don't get me wrong, when I was going into this thing, I studied for a whole year before jumping into this thing, and I was still scared shitless, to get into this first property. Because I mean, you could read books and articles and stuff all day, but until you actually get into it, you don't know what it's like. But I do want to put it out there. Like I said, I'm not doing this to become like social media famous or anything. Like, I just want to help people, and I enjoy doing this stuff. So for me, it's like, use me as a resource. Like, if anybody, whether it's, real estate or business or whatever, like if there's something I can do to help, like if you're literally thinking like, hey, for instance, there might be something that's off market. Like you hear a friend that's just, saying that, hey, I want to sell my house. And they approach you one day and they're like, hey, do you know anybody that might want to buy a house? And then you're thinking to yourself, hey, I could probably buy it, and they can maybe give me a discount, and I could turn that into an investment property. Call me and I will help you free of charge all day, every day. I would be so excited to help you do all that to the very end, so that I can answer all the questions, take away all that fear and apprehension, and that would make my day. Just making that happen for you would be more than enough for me. So always keep that in mind, so. But I'm glad this session helped bring some transparency. Like I said, all these numbers that you guys saw here is literally, unfortunately, what came out of my pocket, but I'm gonna get it back one day. That's the whole point of this thing. So yeah. So like I said, if there's nothing else, like I said, definitely, keep in touch, you guys. I mean, I text you guys on birthdays and stuff, and all that crazy stuff anyway. So, I know I'll be in touch. But yeah, once again, I appreciate it. I love you guys. And, I hope you have a good night, and I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. Thank you, D. Appreciate it.
Thank you, D.
Absolutely. All right. Take care then.
Okay.